Hello, BookTube. It's Joshua here, and right now it is 6:30 a.m. 6:30 a.m., which is the time I would normally be getting up to go to school. But I've actually been up since 2 a.m. Because I apparently still have not gotten over my jet lag. But I've just been essentially reading all morning, and I just returned to this poetry anthology. I'm reading other things like Jude the Obscure for my class, but I'm still gonna try to make time for this throughout the semester. This is the Chinese poetry anthology that I mentioned in my book haul video, but which I forgot to show. So yeah, it's the anchor book of Chinese poetry, from ancient to contemporary, the full 3,000 year tradition, edited by Tony Barnstone and Chou. Sorry, I don't know if the letters here are backwards or not, but oh well. I'm recording on my laptop because my phone is charging. But yeah, I'm still only 30 pages into this anthology. I'm taking it very slowly and rereading the poems and trying to, as much as I can, internalize the ones that I like the most. And I want to read you a couple. I'm really being taught a lot about Chinese poetry. There's so apparently the earliest collection of poems in Chinese history is the Book of Songs, which is from the Zhou dynasty. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Maybe it's Zhao dynasty. Um, and it's essentially a compilation mostly of folk songs and maybe some hymns as well. And there's one that I particularly like. It's called Ripe Millet. Um, yeah. So, and there's actually a footnote here kind of explaining what the poem is about or some of the context behind it. So I'll just read that to you first. According to the preface of the Book of Songs, the poet is a minister of the Eastern Zhao dynasty, from 771 to 256 BCE. He comes to the capital city of the earlier Western Zhao dynasty, 1122 to 771 BCE, and finds all the temples destroyed and all the royal palace replaced by rows and rows of millet. Moved by these changes, he improvises this poem. Now I'll read it to you. Rows and rows of ripe millet, the sorghum sprouts, and I take long, slow walks with a shaken heart. My friends say his heart is hurting, but strangers wonder, what can he be looking for? Oh, far, far blue heaven, what makes me feel this way? Rows and rows of ripe millet, the sorghum is in spike, and I take long, slow walks with a drunken heart. My friends say his heart is hurting, but strangers wonder, what can he be looking for? Oh, far, far blue heaven, what makes me feel this way? Rows and rows of ripe millet, the sorghum is all in grain, and I take long, slow walks with a choking heart. My friends say his heart is hurting, but strangers wonder, what can he be looking for? Oh, far, far blue heaven, what makes me feel this way? So that is the poem. I really like it. In a way, it largely repeats itself just three times over. But I really like what really moved me, is I think the image that is being implied here. Um, there are the lines that say, "But strangers wonder, what can he be looking for?" And then it says, "Oh, far, far blue heaven, what makes me feel this way?" And so I gather from the fact that strangers are looking at him and saying, "What can he be looking for?" I gather from that um, the speaker of this poem is looking up into the sky, maybe in a state of despair or deep personal crisis or questioning, because I wouldn't know any other explanation as to why strangers are wondering what can he be looking for. And then the lines that follow immediately after are, "Oh, far, far blue heaven." So I assume he's looking up into the heaven, and you kind of have to extrapolate that image from the lines. It's not really obvious. It's not really clear, and I really like that about this poem. Um, and then I want to read to you. Besides the Book of Songs, there are also excerpts from the Tao Te Ching, um, which I really enjoyed. I've been really enjoying it. But I also want to read you I want to read you the ending of this long poem called "Verses of Chou." And apparently, Chou, um, who also lived in the Zhao dynasty. Apparently, he is one of the first Chinese poets to be known by his name and have it not just be and have his poetry not just be anonymous. And he wrote a poem called "Encountering Sorrow," or at least it's translated that way. Um, and they give some excerpts here, and the poem is kind of about. I may be misremembering what the editors said, but the poem apparently is about his kind of exile from the court where the court where he um, lived, his disagreement with the other people there, his scorning and being scorned um, by the other people there. He spends a lot of the early parts of the poem kind of lamenting the fact that there are what he views as evil people or people who have taken the wrong step at that court, whereas he views himself as the righteous one, and he talks about it at length using some really beautiful metaphors, I think. And then at the end, he finally decides to leave his home, and the poem takes on these kind of really beautiful. It takes on this really beautiful language and these really beautiful metaphors. And so I want to read you the ending of the poem. Um, it starts with the name Ling Fen, who earlier in the poem gives him a who earlier in the poem tells his fortune. So Ling Fen had already told me his auspicious augury. I would choose a lucky day and commence my journey. I broke a branch of carnelian to serve as food, pounded carnelian fragments to make rations for the road. I had flying dragons to draw my vehicle, a carriage inlaid with jasper and ivory. How could I band with those of different mind? I would go far away, remove myself from them. I turned my course toward the Kunlan Mountains, over distant roads rambling on and on, hoisting clouds and rainbows to shield me from the sun, sounding the tinkle of jeweled carriage bells. In the morning I set off from the ford of heaven. By evening I had reached the westernmost limit. Phoenixes reverently bore my banners, soaring and dipping in solemn flight. Suddenly my route took me to the flowing sands. I traced the red waters, ambling at my ease. I beckoned dragons and horned dragons to bridge the ford for me, commanding the western sovereign to let me pass over. But the trail was long and rank with dangers, so I summoned a host of carriages to come and attend me. Passing Puchao Mountain, I veered to the left, pointing to the western sea as our destination. I marshaled my chariots, 1,000 in number, their jeweled hubs aligned as they raced side by side, my 8 dragons drawing me, writhing and turning, my cloud pennants fluttering and streaming on high. I tried to curb my will, to slacken my pace, but my spirit soared upward into distant regions. I played the 9 songs, danced the Chou music, stealing a brief day for enjoyment. But as I descended the bright reaches of heaven, suddenly I looked down and saw my old home. My groom was filled with sadness, and the horses in their longing pulled about in reins and refused to go on. It's over. In this land there's no one who knows me. Why must I long for my old city? Since there's no one I can join with in administering just rule, I will seek out Peng Xian in the place where he dwells. And Peng Xian there, um, the footnote tells us that Peng Xian is, I think, maybe a mythological character, or yeah, a mythological character who drowns himself in a river. So I will seek out Peng Xian in the place where he dwells implies that the speaker, Chou is also going to drown himself. And I really like that passage, um, because it builds up. It has all these kind of mythological elements into it. The fact that dragons are drawing his carriages, and it has just some of these some really beautiful descriptions. It describes him ascending the bright reaches of heaven, but then right as he's about to right as it's approaching this climax, it says, "Suddenly I looked down and saw my old home," and then from there it just all that collapses and it's just sorrow, and I thought that was really moving. Um, so yeah, that's where I've gotten so far. Just the first Zhao dynasty. Now I'm reading about the Han dynasty, which is from 206 BCE to 220 CE. I really like this volume because it has a lot of editorial material. They offer introductions to every era and every poet or book of poetry, and that means I'm not just learning about the poetry, but I'm also learning a little bit about Chinese history, which is really wonderful because I don't know anything about Chinese history. So yeah, I'm really happy that I got this book. It's turning out to be very worthwhile. I don't know when I'll finish it, um, but you know I'm not gonna. I don't. I guess I don't really view this as necessarily being something that I should go through from front to back at a measured pace. I think I should just take my time and, you know, live live with it. Is the way that people say it, and I'll try to do that. So yeah, that's all for today. Kind of rambly video, and yeah, I'll see you guys. Thank you for watching.